What's going on, guys? Happy Thanksgiving and welcome to Victims and Villains, a channel dedicated to discussing mental health through pop culture. My name is Captain Nostalgia. I am a writer, podcaster, and the director of our film festival, Horrific Hope. First film festival of its kind to be mental health focused and horror centric. If you are a filmmaker and have a screenplay, short film, or feature film, click the links in the descriptions below and submit today. And now through Monday, November 28th, if you guys are watching this, you get 50% off with code THANKS23 when you guys submit. And we also want to give a special shout out to our sponsors for the film festival so far: Diabolical DVD, Convicted Printing, and Fierce Literature. And you guys can check out all of their stuff in the show notes below. And if you would like to become a sponsor, links for that are also in our show notes. Along down there, you'll also find links to our social media, Patreon, our mental health resource library, more podcasts, and movie reviews like this. Today we're talking about Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. This is the second in the Benoit Blanc. Is it a saga at this point? I don't know. Let's jump into it. So this movie tells the story of a billionaire played by Edward Norton, who basically collects his 5 closest friends to solve his murder mystery, and Benoit Blanc, played by Daniel Craig, accidentally gets invited, and the fake party becomes a real hunt for a killer. And I'll be honest, I don't even know where to start with this movie. This movie was fantastic. I'm just going to start there and work my way down. Like, I really love how this movie plays to everyone's strengths, and I really only kind of thought about that at first with the Norton character, but then the more that I sat on it, the more I was like, you know what? No, it actually kind of does everything really well for all the cast involved. Daniel Craig, of course, returned as Benoit Blanc, and this movie, you kind of get to see a different side of Benoit. I really liked that he's not necessarily this world-renowned detective anymore. He still is, but you're kind of getting to see a little bit more of a vulnerable personal side for him, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in the mental health moment, but I really enjoyed the fact that we got to see more three-dimensional copy than just a guy stepping into a legacy. I feel like it's been a couple years since we've seen Norton, and he brings it back like he never left, and I really thoroughly enjoyed that. He's got that charisma, but also that quality of him. You're not quite sure if you can trust him or not. His character in this movie feels kind of similar to other performances that he's done in the past. I'm not going to name which ones in, hopes of possibly ruining where his character or any of the other characters go in this movie. I really like Kate Hudson. It's been a long time since I feel like I've seen her in a film, and she's hilarious in this film, as is Dave Bautista. I feel like probably the person that got the short end of the stick in this movie was probably Leslie Odom Jr. I really was wowed by him last year in One Night in Miami, and also Hamilton, and I just kind of feel like he still gives a great performance, but his character doesn't really feel as developed as some of the other characters in this movie does. Or I guess the better word to say is stand out, because character development is kind of something that this film lacks a little bit of. And I get it, when you do an ensemble piece, it's not always going to be easy for you to develop each of your characters, and I definitely think the characters that feel the most developed are the most standout performances in this movie. I've already talked about Craig and Norton, but I think another worthy and possibly the best performance in this entire movie would be Janelle Monae. Now, I'm not going to tell you a lot about her character. Her character has some of the biggest surprises in this movie, some of the deepest laughs in this movie, and honestly makes me excited for the possibility of seeing her and Craig in future movies together. The two of them have great chemistry, but more than just that is the two of them just have, her character is amazing. This movie definitely takes its time to get set up, and in some respects, it kind of follows the formula that Johnson did the first film, but then kind of veers off and makes it its own. That's really what I liked about this movie, is that the first film, it's really easy to have a family and you bring everyone together. With this film, he had a little bit more of a challenge where you have seemingly different personalities, where like Hudson plays Birdie J, who is a runway model turned sweatsuit company owner. You have Dave Bautista, who plays a Twitch streamer. You have Janelle Monae, who is Norton's partner in this. You have Catherine Hahn, who plays a politician. Then you have Leslie Odom Jr., who plays a scientist. And so you have all of these people surrounding the Norton character, and then you have to figure out why the Craig character is there. And I feel like this movie just kind of continuously had me on the edge of my seat because of not knowing how all of these like seemingly vastly different characters all fit together, and really also at the same time what would give them motive for murder. I really loved how funny this movie is. This is probably one of the funniest films this year. And the thing about this movie is that when it comes to genres, like, yes, this is a mystery noir film, but also at the same time, this is a comedy and a drama that is rolled in together. And when I say that this film plays to the strengths of its actors, it also plays to the strengths of its genres. And that's something that I feel like, I don't want to say it's really rare in film, but it doesn't happen as often as we think it should. And that's some of the things that I really admired about the writing that Johnson does for this film. It's a smart film with witty comedy and great twists. The pacing is really, really good. I loved how this movie is kind of set up to where it's really straightforward at first, then it kind of backtracks, then it kind of brings it forward. I thought that was a really genius way to kind of do this, because it created a lot of twists in that second half, where there's this first film, it just feels really straightforward. And then you kind of get to see how the twist that Johnson is kind of building to, and I really liked that because I feel like it brought me to the edge of my seat. It made me laugh. It made me really emotional in this movie, and I was really just riveted by how everything in this movie flows. Honestly, if Rian Johnson just wants to make these movies through the rest of his career, I'm absolutely fine with that. Well, let's go ahead and run this through our Rorschach rating. Go ahead and give Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, a 4 out of 5. I think this is arguably one of the smartest films of this year. It's probably one of the funniest films of this year. It has a great cast. It utilizes all the cast to its strengths. Some of the characters feel a little bit underdeveloped. That's probably my biggest complaint with this movie, but overall, this is such a fun time. And being able to see this in a theater with an audience is something that I'd highly recommend. I don't know if everyone's going to be able to have that type of advantage, but if you have the capability, please seek this movie out. See it in a theater. See it with an audience, because it'll change the way you view this film. And if you're unfortunately can't see it in theaters, it hits Netflix beginning December 23rd. Let's talk about mental health. If you guys are new to our content, Mental Health Moment is where we take a theme of mental health and talk about it for a few moments in hopes to deconstruct the stigma surrounding mental health. What I think is interesting about this movie in particular is the time of it. So for the first film, there's a really timeless quality about it because it's not dated with the year. This movie takes place in the year 2020, at the height of the pandemic. And I know we've talked about it over the years in the podcast about how the pandemic has affected our mental health. But one of the things that I really talked about earlier in this review was how I liked how Johnson really fleshed out and made Daniel Craig's Benoit Blanc character more vulnerable in this movie, including his kind of a little bit showcase of his mental health. So before the events of the film kind of start taking place, we get to kind of see each respective character, but Benoit in particular is going through depression in between cases, to which he's kind of just having a like a cigar, and he's on video chat playing Among Us with some friends, and he talks about how like just he goes kind of stir crazy in between cases. And I think this is a strong reminder to stay vigilant when it comes to your own mental health, when it comes to the things that occupy our time. First off, it begs the question, what are we spending our time with? How is that use of the time also affecting our mental health? And when we put that into a grand scheme of things, one of the things that works for Benoit is that he likes to use his brain to solve mysteries, and there's a little bit of a creative aspect. Creativity has a powerful effect on mental health, and this is a reminder to always stay vigilant when it comes to being a creator and being, continuously working for your mental health. Maybe that's not doing things like what we do here at Victims and Villains, between a podcasting network, con appearances, panels, movie reviews like this. Maybe it's something quiet like painting or drawing or creating music or poetry. Find something that's going to benefit your mental health. Blanc serves as a cautionary tale for those of us that have kind of I don't want to say let our guards down, but I feel like it's the best way to put it when it comes to being creative or going into the swing of things. Because at the end of the day, your mental health is something that you are having to live with. Your mental health and what you do and how it affects you, it means a lot. So find something that's going to creatively affect your mental health and benefit your mental health. And in the meantime, while you're searching, if you or someone you know is struggling, you need resources for anything from suicide prevention to drug addiction and more, links are in the descriptions below for our mental health resource library. I hope this helped, and make sure that you guys hit that subscribe button and check out Glass Onion when it comes to Netflix. December 23rd, it's now playing in limited release in theaters, so if you get a chance to see it in theaters, I highly recommend seeing it. But until then, have a good night, and once again, have a safe holiday.